Thanks everybody for joining us. Let's go ahead and get things started. Dan, go ahead and unmute yourself. Let me pin you.
You got it.
And go ahead and get started. Talk us through a little bit about the free agency process this year. A little different with us and Chelsea in terms of how that played out.
Yeah, thanks, Jiggy, and thank you all for jumping on. Really, really exciting day for the Aces. So really to jump in, I need to rewind about a year. Chelsea was a restricted free agent, and we were fortunate enough to take a meeting with her in Las Vegas. And, after that meeting, a peer of mine in the league said to me, hey, so you met with Chelsea? And I said, yeah. And they said, you think you're going to get her? And I said, no. I said, so why'd you meet with her? And I said, because if you get a chance to meet with Chelsea Gray, you meet with her. And fast forward a year, we weren't sure if Chelsea was going to become available. But at the start of free agency, we found out quickly that she would. And immediately Bill and I talked, and Chelsea became our number one target. So we went through an in-depth process with her. Chelsea, to her credit, it was an important decision for her. She took it very seriously, looked at it from a basketball perspective, looked at it from her family's perspective, and looked at it like she wanted to find a home. And I think that's what Bill and I communicated to her the most was how our players have felt, the last 3 years under Bill's leadership and MGM's ownership, and also the future with Mark Davis and really what's ahead and how exciting times are going to be. So I think she looked at it and said, this is really a good for not only right now, but for the future. So obviously there's the basketball piece, and I'll let Bill touch on that, pass it to him, but I think it made a lot of sense on all the courts.
Is that my cue?
That is your cue.
Go for it.
Okay. Like Dan touched on last year, we brought in Chelsea and we explained who we were and did a really good in-depth presentation to her. This year, a little more difficult to accomplish that, but she already was experienced with us. We had good long talks. And I think the most important thing is for us is to bring somebody into our family that we can trust. We have a very good thing here in Las Vegas. Asia Wilson, obviously, is our franchise player and MVP this past year. Very young player. And it was important to put some experience around her, as well as, to have a championship person. We don't have any, except for coaches. So having a championship experienced player in Chelsea Gray is a tremendous thing for her and our franchise going forward. This is a short and a long-term acquisition. I think Chelsea thinks it's the same way. We have a chance to win right now, we believe, but also to cement our franchise for many years to come, assuming that we're able to perform to her standards as far as what she's expecting from our franchise, which, we talked and was very clear. More than just being a basketball player on the court. It's about her future in the community and post-basketball. And that's our job also as a franchise. We've openly talked about that since the first day I got here in Las Vegas, is that's one of our hallmarks as we look out for our players, both not only when they're out on our team as basketball players, but also when they leave. It doesn't matter if you're here for 1 year or for 10 years. That's our philosophy and how we're going to do business. So we expressed that to her, and she's looking for that also. So it was a really good fit for the both of us. As far as on the court, this is a vision thing, man. She's got that vision. Very few guards or basketball players have the vision where they can see 1 or 2 steps ahead and know what's coming. Our players know that. And we talked a lot with our players about Chelsea, and that's the consistent theme coming up is she sees the court. She sees who's open. She makes the right pass. She's unselfish. She will, when she has to do things, she will do things, and she'll make big shots. But most importantly, it's the vision thing for us to grow as a basketball team. And her experience and her leadership that she's exhibited over the past 6 years is a big positive for us, for our young basketball team. So those are what, the main drivers that we did to bring her on this basketball team on the floor. Like I said, we are a family. We are going to grow the player. And so hopefully we can perform to her expectations in the coming year. So she'll be here for the rest of her career. I know our owner is very excited. He also made a call to Chelsea, to try to cement the situation and express who he is, because he's an unknown in our world. And so we have an ownership change, and she asked a lot of questions about ownership change and where it was going. We tried to explain to the best of our ability, because we're still young and we're still learning Mark also, and he's still learning us. So I think we all said, okay, this is something that we all really want to do, especially on our end. And when she signed up, I think it was a very big day for the Las Vegas Aces going forward. Other than that, I'll get off the stage and answer questions after the fact, because I've been accused of talking too much before you all came in the room. So we'll get right to the start of the show. So I'm going to be quiet and shut up and get out of the way. I'll answer questions later.
All right. Chelsea, why don't you tell us the free agent process from your perspective and why you chose to join the Las Vegas Aces?
Yeah, so both of the points of what Bill and Dan were saying, they're all true. After visiting Vegas and taking those meetings, it really left an imprint on my mind and my heart. It stuck with me what Bill said. He was like, it's a big, small town, and the women is at the focal point of the city. And I just love that part and that aspect of being part of a team that is growing in that type of environment. I heard great things as an organization. I felt that when I was in Vegas a couple years ago for All-Star. And that's what I was like, okay, they really treat their players as professionals on all levels. And I'd heard good things about both Dan and Bill. Our conversations have been super organic. They were long. I had questions, concerns, things I just want to know about ownership, like they said. But they really want their players to succeed, but challenge them to be great all the time. And that's something I really respected and enjoyed and loved, that type of conversation. I love what they had to say about this year, but also in the future as well. And then from a roster standpoint, I'm going to be playing with great players and people that want to leave a legacy, that want to compete for championships, not just for this year, like they said, but in the future. So I said, sign me up for this year and in the future. I'm extremely excited to be part of this organization. Looking ahead, I can't wait to get on the court. I've already been cracking jokes with Asia. She's already getting on my nerves a little bit. So that'll be interesting in the coming months and in the future with that. But you know, I'm just excited for this new journey. It's going to be one heck of a run.
Thanks a lot, Chelsea. Before we get started with questions for everybody, once again, go ahead and raise your hands virtually, and we'll get to as many questions as we can so that Chelsea can get a little acclimated to the Las Vegas media. If you wouldn't mind, regardless of whether you're local or national, please introduce yourself. Let us know what organization you're with, so she can start putting names to faces and outlets. Let's go ahead and start with Mr. Doug Feinberg with the Associated Press.
Hey, Chelsea, good to see you. Doug Feinberg, the Associated Press. Coach Laimbeer, good to see you as well. It's been too long. Dan, I see you all the time, apparently, so not so much that way. Chelsea, I'm curious, you mentioned that you talked to the Raiders owner, who's now the Vegas owner, Mark Davis. You're a Northern California girl, I believe. Were you a Raiders fan at all? I mean, does that help seal the deal that your organization, maybe you're a fan of, is now a WNBA owner? Is my question for you.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think before we even start this call, we were just talking about teams that we liked. And I was just like, listen, it was Oakland A's, it was the Oakland Raiders. You know, it was pretty much what you had to be growing up in my household. So we kind of bonded over that moment and him being in the Bay Area, being familiar with different places when we had our conversation. So it definitely was a pull in the right direction. If he would have said something about the 49ers, it would have been a little bit of an issue. But no, it was great. It was fun to have that type of connection at first. And then we were able to have a conversation and dive a little bit deeper.
And Coach, my question for you is you have a point guard now who obviously has played with some really good players on her previous team. Does it help? I mean, you have a lot of options on offense to have a guard who can distribute well, but also know when to take her own shots in the crunch if needed.
Yeah, well, that's one of the big assets that she has. You know, she understands how to play basketball. She understands it's a team game. You have to keep everybody happy out there because we have some very talented players across the board, either starters or bench players. Everybody wants to contribute and want to be involved. You need somebody that's out there with the experience to be able to pull this all together, and she does. And I think that's one of the big positives going forward for our basketball team is, and I'll be talking to her a lot, and so will Tanisha, and just got to keep everybody involved, which she understands, but at the same time, you have to be selfish at times when you know it's you. She's a mismatch in the post for almost every guard that she plays against. She can get in the lane and make big shots. But at the same time, she also realizes that we have Asia Wilson, we have Liz Cambage, we have Angel McCutcheon, we got Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young and Hanby. Okay, it's a team game, and we need all those players to feel comfortable in order for us to win a championship. And she's going to be one of those leaders that are really going to be a big positive for us.
Mark?
Yeah, Coach Mark Anderson, Las Vegas View Journal. I'm thinking more specifically about how you're going to use Chelsea. Do you see her as a 1 and a 2, or what do you think right now?
I don't have a point. I have a lead guard. I hate the word point guard. It means like you dribble the ball all day long, looking to set somebody up to get yourself an assist so you can get 10 assists a game. I don't believe in that. I believe in playing basketball and giving the ball up when you're supposed to give the ball up to the teammates, enter the ball the post because we have a dominant post game. Stand there in the three-ball line because they're going to sag off all day long, knock down 3 balls, and penetrate. One of the things that's going to be very positive for someone like Plum is that Chelsea's going to penetrate the lane and may have a 10-footer, but Plum's standing on the 3-ball line wide open. She's going to find her. I'll take 3 points over 2 at that point in time all day long. So I think she'll play some 2. She'll play some 1. She'll play all the above. This is basketball. And I think that's why we got her. I think she wants to do the same thing.
And Chelsea, you're playing with obviously a team that is a championship type roster. As far as coming in and finding your place, just how do you expect that transition to go?
I think it'll happen organically. I think the type of players that's already in Vegas, me just adding to the mix, I just want to make this environment better. I think that's the case for whenever you want a player to join your team. You want them to be uplifted. And that's my goal. I want to win a championship more than anything. I want to win basketball games. I don't want to do it at a high level. So I think coming into training camp, having that kind of mindset, I think it will just happen naturally. Constant communication, I think is going from both the staff and the players. The players are going to be out there performing. The coaches will prepare us as much as possible, but it's going to be on us to get the job done.
Chris?
Thank you.
Chris, this is Chris Matthews with the CBS affiliate here in Las Vegas. And Chelsea, let me just ask you, you mentioned that you sat down, or at least you talked on the phone with Mark Davis here in Las Vegas. We're getting to know him also. You mentioned you talked specifics. What were some of the things that you talked to Mark about now as the owner of the team?
It was a couple things about his ownership and his drive to be a part of the Aces, and where he saw the vision going. And, he was a proponent of me coming, just the trajectory he saw the Aces going. And I wanted to be a part of that, like his drive and his excitement for the next steps for the Aces. And you can really feel that in our conversation. We talked about ownership, the steps he's taken to get there. You talk about his background and why in the leadership outside of the court. You can talk basketball, you can talk sports all day, but I think it went to the type of person he is and what he's about when you talk about some of the things that he does in the community. So that was a big thing for me as well, what that will look like with him as an owner, but me as a player as well, and how we can kind of blend those together.
I saw that social media post that you guys did where you drove around Las Vegas and you went by the UFC and the hotels and so forth. And like you mentioned, it's a big town, but it has it's a big town, but a small town feel. And that's kind of how it is when we live here. But what is there something that kind of sold you on, this is where I want to be?
Just the conversations, obviously being a part of, a team and the type of people that they had. I've been able to spend time with Asia with USA Basketball. I've spent time with Liz, her being in LA sometimes. So being able to have that interaction and get a feel of who I will be playing with, I think is important. But just the conversations and everybody's selflessness and the drive to want to win championships and bring a championship to Vegas. And I think that was important for me. And it, you know, whenever you make a decision, you can't think about what could have been, or are you making the right, you just have to have the leap. And I have faith, and Bill talked about trust. You have to be able to trust this organization. And I do, or else I would have made this decision. So that's kind of where my mindset has been.
Bill, a question for you real quick, if I can. Is this by far the best team that you've assembled here in Las Vegas? And just kind of a question on what's the latest with Liz and getting her contract and her stuff done?
Well, yeah, this is the best team we've assembled because we've added more pieces. But more importantly, we're growing up. When I first got here, we were extremely young, and we've taken some steps competitively, but also learning how to win. I think the last 2 years has been in the locker room a very large step forward for Asia and the other young players, that they're understanding how to win. They're understanding what it takes to win, the sacrifice that each individual has to make for the good of the whole. And then Chelsea, she's the same way. She understands sacrifice, and it's about winning. And it's about team. So I think overall, yeah, is this the best on a piece of paper talented team that we've had here? Obviously, yes. But whether that translates into the championship, that's what the players are going to, like Chelsea talked about. Now it's on the players. Coaches will prepare them, and I will guide them the best they can. But it's still about the players playing the game and playing together and winning.
Bill, adding Chelsea, how do you not win a WNBA championship now?
There are so many things that happen. Injuries in the past. Look at last year. We didn't have Liz Cambage or Kelsey Plum, and then we lose Hamby. A lot of weird stuff happens on the road to winning the championship. But I think the quality of the depth that we have now established on this basketball team, we can overcome bad calls or overcome injuries, hopefully temporary injuries, where people are sick. All those things, add up. And I think our depth of quality, I think, is going to help carry us through.
Gabe?
Hey, it's Gabe from Her Hoop Stats. So I have a question for Bill and Chelsea, or whoever wants to answer it. But I was just wondering how, Chelsea, your game is going to change after playing with, two of the best bigs in the game, and Candace and Nneka, to going to playing with two of the best bigs in the game with Asia and Liz, very different types of players. So how do you envision your on-court role changing in terms of, are you going to be off ball more? Are you going to be more of a shooter in that realm?
I think at the core of myself, I'm a pass first type of player, regardless of who I'm playing with. And really, I believe that the pick and roll game is going to be crazy, honestly, if I'm being frank about it. But I also believe that me working with them and seeing, which side they like better. Like I knew off top whose side was better when I was playing with Nneka or Candace, or which way they liked the ball. Did they like it a bounce pass? Can I do that? So me being able to play with him, like I think that will grow and that chemistry will grow and you'll see it start happening. But also like we have great players in Plum, we have Angel, like being able to find those players, I'm excited about. So I think it'll just grow over time. I think at the core, I'll stay the exact same in a system, at the end of the day, you make layups, you hit some pull-ups and you got to make some threes. Get to the free throw line and be aggressive and get stops. So at the core, I'm not going to change. It's just how I get to those points, or how we get to those points is going to be the difference.
Chelsea's a basketball player. We have a lot of really good basketball players. That's what I've assembled here. And, everybody looks at Liz as being 6'8" and whatever. She's a really smart basketball player. And we have a lot of those. So I think it's all going to work out. Chelsea will find her way. Other people will find their way. Just throw the ball up and let's go have fun.
Howard?
Howard Magdala, next in 538. Chelsea, congratulations. Bill, Dan, congratulations. I got one for you, Chelsea, and one for you, Bill, if I could. Chelsea, you have, at age 28, done so much already. You've won a championship. You've been an all-star 3 times. You're there with USA Basketball. But this is really, in a lot of ways, your first chance to kind of alter your own story. And I wonder how much this free agency allowed you to take a step back, to take in all that you've accomplished and to think through how you wanted to plan out your arc in sort of a big picture way.
I think during this free agency, I've kind of taken control over that. And I think these years where you're under rookie contract and you're a restricted free agent, like the power is with the team. And I think this year allowed me to find my own power, have these conversations that haven't really happened before, you don't really see happening. You might talk to some players and be like, how is your franchise? How is that? But to be able to go into these meetings, have these Zoom meetings and really take control and being confident with my decision. So that all was playing a part during this free agency. And so throughout that whole process, it kept on coming back to Vegas. It kept on coming back to Vegas, writing down pros, cons, whatever in between. It always centered and went back to Vegas. And so I had to have confidence in making that decision.
I appreciate it. And Bill, my question for you is, you talk about having ball players, but there's now in your backcourt 2 players who are capable of being ball dominant, 2 players who are capable of playing off the ball as well. And you look at the last few champions, whether it's Jewel and Sue in Seattle or what Christie and Cloud were able to do in DC, that seems to be a common denominator. I wonder to what extent you think that plays a part in bringing in a Chelsea Gray and how much that feels sort of like a bar for entry for being one of the elite teams in the WNBA today.
Well, you make a good point in that you need multiple players to handle the basketball. And she's one that can run the 2. Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young are very capable guards to bring the ball and advance the ball. 2 different style of guards, but very capable of getting a rebound or getting an outlet pass and pushing and initiating the offense. So we got a really good core of guards and young guards that, are still going to grow professionally and emotionally and off the court. And they all like being in Las Vegas. So, we have our future is bright in that regard. But it's still about basketball, and all of them are basketball players. They're all very solid, smart, and understanding sacrifice. And that's what I think is going to be our biggest asset is everybody realizes the good of the whole is so much more important than the individual, because most of these players now have accomplished individual goals. They've accomplished all the stuff that, makes them their name and their players and their brand. Now win. That's all that matters right now is when it kind of liken it to a little bit of what Minnesota, when you get teams that win consistently, like Detroit Shock. Okay, everybody realized this is my role. This is what I have to do when everybody went about winning. Then Minnesota came along and they were consistently had great players across the board, but they all knew how to play with each other and how to sacrifice for each other. And I think that's what we've created right now. Now we just have to win the first one. Once you win the first one, the second and third ones are so much easier, but the first one's always the hardest.
Thank you, Bill.
John?
John Robleski from Global Traveler. I have a question for Coach and Chelsea, if I may. First, Chelsea, how much pressure, or is there pressure? Because the team was very good last year, so is there a lot of pressure on you to put them over the top for the championship?
I don't feel any pressure, honestly.
I gotta laugh at that one.
No. I don't feel any pressure. I'm excited more so. You can say anxious to get on the court, but pressure, no.
Thank you. And Coach, if I may ask you, when you're looking at a crop of free agents, do you target who you think is the best fit for your team, or do you target someone you think might be the best player?
Yeah. A little of both. But in this particular situation, both were the same. That we needed someone in her presence from just being a locker room presence, but also her skill level of what she can do for us. So I think in this particular situation, it's both. That doesn't come around very often. You get a quality player like Chelsea and have an opportunity to add that for nothing. I don't have to trade anything for her. This is a both situation, not a if and or.
Thank you very much. Good luck next season.
Zach?
Zach Gottlieb, Primetime Sports Talk. I've got a couple questions for you, Chelsea. The first one being, what's it like to move from LA, where you had a lot of success, to a new team? Like, what was that process like?
It was hard at first to make that call. It's been a place where I've been, I came there as my second year in the league, and then now making this decision to, move on and go into a next chapter. But also it's like refreshing. It's new, it's exciting, but also like you can see the future and what can be possible. So it's exciting in these not only this year, but the years to come. It was hard saying goodbye, but it was also refreshing and exciting to say hello to something new.
Great. And then my second question is, you have that championship experience. You've won a championship with LA, and Coach Laimbeer touched on it a little bit. How do you feel that championship experience can help you lift this team from just making it to the finals to now winning it?
Yeah, I think, you talk about winning, and every year is going to be different. You probably can go back to, I don't know, in Minnesota and be like, well, yeah, they won this year, but what was different the next year? So I have won. I've been a part of a team that understands that selflessness is, at the root of winning that championship. Like, you want the best for the player that's next to you. And that shows up defensively in rotations. That shows up in making that extra pass, knowing you probably, you might have just hit one, but that's an even better shot. And so just being able to be around that, having veteran leadership there as I was growing in my game on and off the court, being able to bring that in that experiences, but also in-game experiences, like being able to be the calm in the storm. I think that's something that I've really learned to kind of master, not being able to go too high or too low. And that's something that I've learned over the years. In that championship year, you really felt that, you really understood that. And just being able to be my best at all times, being consistent is something that I definitely want to be for this franchise.
All right, we've got time for two more questions, and then Doug, I'm going to let you close out because you've got a special event going on tomorrow that will include 3 members of the Aces and 3 members of USA Basketball. So we'll give you a chance to promote that, since it'll give people another opportunity to talk with Chelsea. Let's go with Nick.
Hey, Chelsea, congratulations. To be a little different without you here in LA. Wanted to get your thoughts. You mentioned earlier how professional this organization was with the Las Vegas Aces. Was there something that you saw with the Aces that you didn't see necessarily with the Sparks, or that catered to you and your needs moving forward?
When you have those type of conversations, you can just see the growth that Vegas wanted to have. And I wanted to be along that journey. It wasn't necessarily what did Vegas have that LA didn't. It's just, what did I want to be a part of right now? What I want to be a part of in the future. And that's kind of where my mindset was. I looked at it as 2 separate entities, not versus, really. And I think when it came down to the end, I was able to see a lot more future and where I wanted to be with the Aces. And so that's what it came down to. Pros and cons for Aces, pros and cons for the Sparks. And I definitely just felt that my future, how I felt for my family on and off the court, it just fit perfectly with the Aces.
And you talked earlier about your free agency time. This is your first time really being a true free agent. What was going through your mind mentally? I know you talked about the physicalities, but what were you going through mentally as far as, transitioning, possibly, leaving at that time before you made your final decision to be with Las Vegas?
What was going through my mind? Have as many conversations you possibly can so you make the best possible decision when you make it, and have confidence in doing that. You're going to take a leap of faith wherever you sign. And I keep on going back and hearing Bill's voice and saying, trust, you have to trust it. And I definitely felt that. And that's why, like I said, sign me up.
All right, last question, Rafiq.
Hey Chelsea, this is Rafi Cluzon with Nothing But That Sports Talk. I just want to ask you, like, what are your impressions about Agent Wilson's career prior to joining the team?
It's been great. I hated playing against her. I tried to one time when we were switching, and I was like, she's gonna go left. She's gonna go left. Sat on the left hand, she faked me, and she still finished left. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be a part of that, to be able to, hopefully on some moments she doesn't have to work as hard to score the basketball. And hopefully I'll help with that. I'm excited to be in South Carolina. I asked about her statue being here. Are we going to drive past that? Hopefully I can take a picture in front of that. That's a big deal. I don't know if what people have been saying, but that's a big and that's a huge deal, especially how young she is, and to have a statue outside of somewhere anywhere is amazing. So I've already been joking with her a lot and a lot of communication with her. So I'm excited to finally be able to play with her in the Aces jersey.
Thanks a lot, Chelsea. Thank you, Dan and Bill, for joining us today, as well as all the members of the media.